every corner of our region. And not once have we failed to vote yes to formally approve a rail project. And I don't think today will be our first time. I want to spend a little bit of time, Mr. Chair, talking about why Hawthorne Boulevard, really in response, I think, to the staff report, and in response to some questions and concerns I've heard once this motion went public, and we've heard all along in this process. Again, today I'm recommending the board approve the Hawthorne Boulevard option as the project. I have been deeply involved in this project. I have walked the right-of-way and Hawthorne Boulevard and the alignments. I've talked to residents and stakeholders. We hosted tours and community meetings. I've walked with Metro staff, with my staff, with residents, and probably more often, I've walked it alone in different times of day to get a real sense of what I thought made sense for the future of the region. And with this recommendation, I am fully aware of the opportunities and trade-offs of both the right-of-way and Hawthorne Boulevard. I understand the trade-offs of both options, and yet again, I'm recommending Hawthorne. Let's talk about some of the concerns about the right-of-way. Residents directly impacted by this project have expressed deep anxiety and fear about the project going down the right-of-way. And let me be clear, I know that there are some who view this as NIMBYism. I, however, think it's not that simple. It's not that sophomoric. And we have heard repeatedly about the residents' commitment to public transit and that they want public transit in their community. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold up these letters where people have talked about why they're concerned about the row and their commitment to public transit on recycled paper, and I'm going to recycle it again. As recommended by Metro staff, the project would impact 178 residential homes located immediately adjacent to the Metro right-of-way and will require 17 temporary construction easements on residential homes for construction that will last more than 6 years. I've also heard concerns about loss of green space, rail safety, and the relocation of oil and gas pipelines along the right-of-way. There are numerous privately owned pipelines that run adjacent and within the right-of-way, including Crimson Pipeline, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, and Plains All America. Metro will need to relocate these pipelines at 4 locations, raising concerns about the safety and associated risks to residents. Residents and affected cities are also concerned about the impact of excavated soils associated with construction. Historic railroad operations may have led to the presence of hazardous materials along the right-of-way, including heavy metals and hydrocarbon contaminations, herbicides, treated wood waste, and asbestos, which would need to be properly handled when disturbed. While the disposal of contaminated soils was deemed less than significant in the final EIR, it still bears concerns and careful attention. So why Hawthorne is the best option? By bringing the project along Hawthorne Boulevard, we enhance an existing commercial corridor with 170 commercial properties serving 350 businesses along the boulevard. The project would connect to the South Bay Galleria redevelopment and provide a direct connection to the South Bay Galleria station from several bus lines already serving Hawthorne Boulevard. Ridership potential is also higher, and even staff's weighted benefits analysis and benefit cost ratios indicate that either alignment delivers comparable levels of benefits and that the benefits of each option outweigh their respective costs. The project is expected to finish just a few months after the anticipated completion date for the right-of-way, both in 2036. And finally, a Hawthorne Boulevard alignment alleviates and addresses the fears of right-of-way residents. Again, to rebut some of the arguments we've heard against Hawthorne, I know many of you in the audience have also fought for transit in the South Bay, and in particular for the right-of-way option, and you're concerned that the Hawthorne option will never get built because of its cost and construction complexity. And what I say is I wouldn't be recommending to the board an option that I didn't believe can and will get built. And here's why. cost and funding gap. First, I've heard that with a project that is $740 million more than the right-of-way option, the funding gap is too large to fill. As a member of the Finance Committee, I'm clear-eyed on the fiscal challenges this agency faces, from reductions in sales tax revenues, challenges in the state and federal funding landscape today, and growing costs of operations and construction. Just at last week's Finance Committee, my colleague, Director Barger, said it well, that the board will need to make tough decisions to manage the agency's fiscal cliff and identify what is mission critical. If I might, would like to ask CEO Wiggins to once again clarify for all of us, with the passage of Measure M and R and the statement that the voters have made with regard to C-Line, if you could weigh in on, whether a Hawthorne option or a row option for that matter is going to have undue burden on the current fiscal cliff we are anticipating.
The action before the board today does not impact the fiscal cliff because the Measure M funding that we have is specific to the C-Line, cannot be used for bus or rail operations.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that clarification. So for those that say the additional cost brings the project to a dead end, I want to point to the staff report. The Hawthorne option, with the funding already secured, is more than 40% funded, perhaps greater, and greater than funding typically secured at this stage for the full alignment of a rail project. For example, just last year, the board certified the EIR for Eastside Phase 2 and the Southeast Gateway Line. At that time, Eastside Phase 2 was approved with $6.8 billion funding gap. The Southeast Gateway Line was approved with a $12.4 billion funding gap. To break that into percentages, at that time, the Eastside Phase 2 secured 33% of its funding, and the Southeast Gateway Line secured 20% of its funding. Again, we've secured 40% of the funding with a $2 billion funding gap. And we just, I gleefully joined with my colleagues and voted just moments ago on the Supv Transit Corridor project that costs 7 times more than the C-Line. Granted, it's a larger, longer rail line. Again, with only $2.5 billion currently secured for Measure M funding. So suggesting this project's funding gap makes the project impossible seems particularly selective in light of our current projects that have substantially larger funding needs. The advantage this project has is we have commitments from several state legislators, Senator Laura Richardson, who chairs a budget subcommittee at the state level, Assemblymember Tina McKinner, who chairs the LA County delegation. They've expressed their interest in supporting Hawthorne and want to be champions of this project at the state and will advocate for and will help us advocate for both state and federal funding. Furthermore, we intend to advance the project consistent with Metro's unified cost management policy. That's important for me to make sure everyone is clear. Second issue that's been brought forward is construction complexity. And staff have shared that construction along Hawthorne Boulevard is complex and will lengthen the construction timeline. One key concern about construction complexity is the permits and approvals required from Caltrans for encroachments into the I-405 and Hawthorne Boulevard. Caltrans has a new transit policy, it's soon to be adopted, which provides department-wide direction for Caltrans with a focus on incorporating public transit features within the state highway system by reviewing and resolving encroachment permits and applications quickly for transit-supported infrastructure. I fully expect that this policy should greatly benefit this project and ensure permits are approved in a timely manner. Caltrans is also in the process of relinquishing significant portions of Hawthorne Boulevard to 2 cities, Redondo Beach and Torrance. So under local control, those cities can centralize permitting and approvals to ensure the project is built on time and on budget. The third concern we've heard about is construction impacts to businesses, and that's not lost on me. And Metro has a broad array of programs and experience supporting small businesses both during and after construction. This motion establishes, once again, a business interruption fund and expands all of Metro's construction mitigation programs for this project, including the agency's pilot investment fund that supports businesses after construction to maximize business preservation. The Business Interruption Fund will also conduct outreach 2 years in advance of construction, a new policy that ensures businesses are prepared with the financial paperwork to apply. So it's my assessment after hours of consideration, reviewing of data, having conversations, thinking about my role as a policymaker, a visionary policymaker on this Metro board, recognizing the kind of actions these boards have taken in the past with our vision to truly connect LA County. It's my assessment the Hawthorne Boulevard alignment offers the strongest opportunity to deliver lasting mobility, economic and environmental benefits that outweigh the short-term challenges of construction with a funding gap that we will be able to overcome. And so, this motion seeks to approve the Hawthorne Boulevard alignment as the project for the Sea Line extension to Torrance. It maximizes the use of Metro's construction mitigation programs and directs Metro to immediately coordinate with responsible agencies and jurisdictions to secure required permits and approvals to ensure the project's timely delivery. Again, I want to thank Directors Sandoval, DuPont, Walker, and Butts for joining me on this motion and listening and responding to our community's deep concerns about the right-of-way. In addition to support from some of our state representatives on the Hawthorne alignment, many of our local South Bay cities have also indicated their support for the Hawthorne option. The city councils of Redondo Beach, Lawndale, Hawthorne, and Hermosa Beach have all voted in support of the Hawthorne option. And so I thank them, and there are several elected officials who will be here today to express their perspective. Again, I brought this motion because I believe it will produce greater long-term community benefits for both residents and business. And I urge us not to conflate lower cost and ease of construction with best value. It was beautifully articulated by our longest-serving board member just a moment ago that benefits sometimes outweigh the costs. And I believe that applies to this option in this motion as well. Again, in 2008 and 16, voters approved the Sea Line extension to Torrance as a priority transit project for the South Bay that has historically lacked access. Advancing the Hawthorne Boulevard alignment ensures that the Sea Line extension to Torrance fulfills its promise as a transformative investment for the South Bay now and for generations to come. And I'll be asking my colleagues for an aye vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. Before we take a motion on 11.1 or 11, we need to hear the public comments. And if you recall, I think we have 2 hours that we've slated for overall, and I don't know